Okay, team. So before we start the JIRA and the tool benefits and everything, so let us understand from which methodology we are using this JIRA and everything. So first thing we are talking about SDLC. Okay. So does anyone guess what is SDLC? Team, try to be interactive. We'll have an interactive session. Try to guess SDLC. Good. So SDLC is nothing but software development life cycle. Okay, right. So in SDLC, we have few stages, right? What are those? Requirement gathering, requirement analysis, system design, development, testing, and maintenance, right? So here, what we are doing, this SDLC is nothing but a framework. Okay, it is a framework to develop an idea into working software. Okay, so you will have an idea, like your client or the person or the organization will have a rough sketch of idea of what he wants, and that idea will move towards all the phases of SDLC. At the end of the SDLC, it will finally mold into a working software. Okay, so in SDLC, you have different types of methodologies. Okay, methodologies, and those are sequential, iterative, and evolutionary, and agile. Okay, so please don't mind these spellings. Okay, so we are talking about agile. So these are all the methodologies, and for each methodology you have multiple models. So for agile you have something called Scrum, and extreme, XP. Okay, and then Kanban, and for sequential you have something called waterfall. For iterative you have something called RUP, and for evolutionary you have something called spiral. Okay, so these are the different types of methodologies that you are having in SDLC. So before we understand the types, these methodologies are nothing but waterfall and V model. Okay, so extension of waterfall is nothing but V model. Waterfall we already written there. Okay, so methodologies are nothing but these are, in short, you can remember them as a set of guidelines. Okay, so or let's say set of rules. So methodology is nothing but set of rules, and models are subset of methodologies. Okay, models are subset of methodologies that follows rules to produce a software. Okay, right. So this is sequential, iterative, evolutionary, and agile are the methodologies, which means they themselves have some rules to follow. So I hope people who already into the caption projects, you may learn about sequential is nothing but the rule in sequential is that you can only move in one direction like a linear path, right? And iterative is a repetitive path, and evolutionary is a spiral path, and agile you have like 4 principles, 4 main values and 12 principles. So these are the rules for that methodologies. And these are the these Scrum and Waterfall are the models which will follow those rules to achieve a project. Okay. So one of that methodology and model today we are discussing, and those are nothing but Agile, Scrum. Okay. Agile and Scrum. So now, can anyone guess what is an Agile? If you want to define Agile, what will be your short approach? Okay. Anyone? What else we can define it? Framework is fine. Anything else? Okay. Sprints, maybe not. Iterative, okay. Managing, okay. Right. Yeah, good. So if you want to define what is an agile to interviewer in short and sweet approach, you can state it as it is an iterative and incremental approach to deliver a project. Okay. So you can mention something called it is an iterative and incremental approach to deliver a project, and that method is called agile. Okay. So why we are saying iterative and why we are saying incremental? So if you observe carefully, people who already know about Agile and Scrum, who already in the prep 2 part, you understood that in Scrum you have sprints. Sprints are nothing but 2 weeks of time period, right? So for each 2 weeks, you will providing something new working software. So that is an incremental, okay? And it is an iterative because you will be remodeling if something goes wrong into the next sprint, right? So in short, Agile is nothing but it is an iterative and incremental approach to deliver a project. Okay. And then we have Scrum. Okay. Now Scrum, as you said, it is a framework. Okay. It is a framework which mainly deals with customer satisfaction, or else you can say client satisfaction and foster delivery, and adapts with quick adapts to changes. Okay. So now if you observe, Scrum has some structure to follow. Okay. Right. So we will start from beginning. Okay. So let's say, okay, let's say Ajit. Okay. Let's say Ajit is a client. And Vinod, Vinod will be our stakeholder. Okay, let's say we want couple of stakeholders. We will go with Kirti and Vinod, Divyank. Okay, Vipin, right? So these are all the stakeholders for us project. Okay, and now let's say COPD is an organization that builds the project for Ajit. Okay, so COPD is an organization that builds a project for Ajit. Okay, so Ajit needs a project, maybe some LMS or some different types of web platforms. So he is looking for COPD where the people can like what we say, build this software for him. Okay, so now Ajit has something, some idea in his mind how that project should look like, how should it behave, right? So let's say he has some idea. Okay, so now this idea needs to be discussed with the COPD software team, right? So let's say we will call COPD software team. Okay, and in COPD we have BA. Okay, let's say we have BA, and we have PO, product owner, and we have Scrum Master. Okay, Scrum Master. So now Ajit and other stakeholders have a basic idea how their platform or how their project should look like after completion. Okay, but they need to be deliver that idea to these people. Okay, so that these people can understand and start working on that project, right? So how they can transfer their understanding to these people? Any idea, Tim? How a client can transfer their understanding to the organization so that organization have better understanding to start a project? What is that main component? Okay, we have user story, use case, epic, sales stations, requirements. Good, good. Okay. So yeah, everything you said is okay, but the main component is product vision document. Okay, so this is your first and primarily document in the Scrum that client will provide to the team so that they will start discussing about the product. Got it? So in this product vision document, you have things like uh, why this project started, who are target group, what segment will it affect, is it feasible, okay, what is the product, who are stakeholders. Okay, so the product vision document contains all these kinds of details so the team will understand what they need to develop, right? So now product vision document has been handed over, and both COPD and stakeholders and client come together and start discussing about the product vision document. So these people have got an idea. Okay, so now our COPD product owner, okay, will connect with the client and stakeholders to get high level requirements. Okay, get high level requirements, and then we will conduct a user story workshop. User story workshop to create user stories. Okay, so remember, user stories will be created by PO and BA with coordination of Scrum team and stakeholders. Okay, got it? So as you know, user stories need to be structured and it should be unique so that developers won't get a misunderstanding about the future. So always user story is better to write with product owner and business analyst. They know the structured way how to write a user story. Okay. So, but some user stories might require expertise from technical team. Some user story might require expertise from testing team or from stakeholder perspective. Then that's the reason while creating these user stories, entire Scrum team and stakeholders sit together to share thoughts and to provide insights. Okay, got it? And yeah, for your question, product grooming. Product grooming will not happen right now. Okay, you're just creating user stories. You didn't move them to anywhere else. Okay, and who could be the product owner in the sense? Yeah, the person, like the designated person, will be the product owner. Okay, who is product owner? Like, what do you mean by who is product owner? He is a employee, right? Like a business analyst, he is the one of the member designated as product owner. Okay. If you want definition, product owner is nothing but he is a person who interact with the stakeholder to gather high level requirements. Okay. Right. So now you have created user stories. So the format of user stories. Does anyone remember the format of user stories? The format of user story. Can anyone guess what will be our format? Team, try to, what will be the format of user story? Format in the sense how you can write a user story. Okay. Anyone? People who already completed prep 2, try to answer. Yeah. Mhm. Okay. Remember when you are attending to an interview, when someone asks you about the format of user story, they want a 3 lines of description. Okay. So that will be considered started as a role so that need, sorry. So I want, need, so that benefit. Okay. So this is the format or a structure you need to follow to prepare a user story. So as to take just we take this as an example and let us build a user story for uh, maybe login future. Okay, not login. Let's take such a future. Okay, as a user, I want to have a search by name for product catalog so that I can search according to my interest. Okay, so this will be your typical user story will look like. So first line will always have the role who from whose perspective this user story has been created. And the second part will have the future he needs. Okay, the second part will have the future he need, and third part will shows us what benefit or what he is getting with that future. Okay, so this will be your format of user story. And for each user story, you will have BV, CP, and acceptance criteria. Okay, you'll be having acceptance criteria. So what is this BV value? What is this BV value? Can anyone guess what is this BV value? Business value? Yeah, that is the full form, but I'm asking what is BV or business value? Anyone? Try to share your ideas. No, nothing to worry. If something goes wrong, I will be here to explain. Okay. Business value means yes. So it shows how important that future to the business or the customer. Okay. And CP. So remember, CP is nothing but complexity points. And another name for CP is called SP. Okay. SP is again nothing but story points. Okay. So you will be mostly having story points in your JIRA tool. You won't find anything called CP. Okay. So don't worry about it. Right. And story points are different. Okay. Story points are nothing but these are the points that define efforts required to complete the user story. Okay, so these are the points that define the efforts required to complete the user story. Got it? And acceptance criteria are nothing but these are the checklist that make sure the user story is measurable and testable. Okay, acceptance criteria is nothing but a kind of checklist or conditions that make sure the user story is measurable or and testable. Okay, so we will have an example. So let's say we have a user story called as a user I want to log in so that I can view my profile. Okay, so this is a user story. For this our BV value may be 500 to 500. Okay, so again BV values can be given using ongoing currency values. Okay, so it is not fixed. Okay, based on your organization the value might change. Okay, if your organization wants to go with multiples of 10s, multiples of 5, or 1 to 10, it's up to them, but in general we have a rule called $100 technique. Okay, or our currency note technique. Okay, so currency notes techniques are nothing but whatever currency notes are available in right now, we will make those note values as the business value. So higher the value, higher important that future for business. So as a login is very important for the platform now. So that's why I have given it the BV as 500, which is highest. Okay. And then story points. Story points, let's say we will give it as a 3. Okay, so how I am giving this 3? Story points will be given using Fibonacci series. Okay, Fibonacci series. So these series will have something called 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, and so on. Okay. So by adding before two numbers, you will get your next number. Okay. Using Fibonacci series, you will mention story points. Okay. So again, when someone say poker or playing cards, what they mean is that uh, they will have some custom made poker cards outside of the poker card, or they will print this Fibonacci series on the poker card, and when they want to assign a value, they will just place that poker card to that user story. Okay, so just like a game. And yeah, and acceptance criteria. So acceptance criteria for login might be like um, so we are talking about login, right? So invalid email should show an error message. Okay. Valid credentials should take 2 seconds to log in. After login, a pop-up needs to show as logged in successful. Okay. So acceptance criteria are nothing but like this. With acceptance criteria, you can say whether a user story is completed or not. So let me give an explanation how that works. Okay. See, let's say as a user, I want to log in so that I can view my profile. This is a user story, and some coders has developed a login feature that whenever user enter valid credential, they just log in. Okay. And if they are just logging, but we don't know whether that is aligning with business value or business rules or not. Okay. So by looking into acceptance criteria, they can say, okay, after fulfilling all the checklist of acceptance criteria, then only we can say that user story is completely done. Okay. So that's why acceptance criteria will behave as a checklist to follow until unless that all the acceptance criteria are completed, then only we can truly say user story is done for sure. Okay. So if you observe carefully, with all these things, we can measure whether this user story is completed or not, and we can test it also. Okay. So that's the reason we have acceptance criteria for user story. And coming to who will be giving these values. So generally BV will be given by the business people. Okay. With the help of PO and BA, and SP will be given by the dev team, and acceptance criteria will be written by BA. Okay. So these are the people who will be contributing to provide these values to the user story. And now, so we have created user story. We have assigned BV and CP values. So now let's say, let me take a picture. Okay. So let's say we got 500 user stories. Okay. And this will be our product backlog. Okay. So whenever you completed all the user stories to return, you will move them to the product backlog, which is nothing but a kind of bucket. Okay. So this user stories will be sitting here. Okay. And after you identify the timeline for a sprint, you will have your sprint backlog. Okay. Sprint backlog. So let's say this sprint is 2 weeks right now. and let me write sprint. Sprint is nothing but it is a time box event. Okay, sprint, it is a time box event where we develop certain features by the end of it. Okay, so now we got product backlog with all the user stories, and we will do a initial product grooming. Okay, a initial product grooming, product grooming. We will do a initial product grooming. Let's say it is first product grooming. So product grooming is nothing but you will be reprioritizing, or let's say first time, right? Prioritizing user stories using some techniques. And those are MVP, Moscow, low CP, high BP. Okay. Right. So what I mean is, let me say, okay, we got a new page. So here, let's say, let me pull this. Let's say we have user stories like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. And they have different business value, different story points and all. Okay. And now after product grooming is nothing but what we say, we will be prioritizing according to uh, their importance. Okay. According to their importance, we will be prioritizing them. So let's say after getting inputs from the stakeholders and we finalize that the order of execution should be like maybe let me okay, so the order of execution may be like 4, 3, 2, 1, 7. What else maybe is 5, 6. Okay, so remember product backlog is nothing but it is a uh, container or a backlog that have all the user stories that needed for the project or product. Okay, and Fibonacci series are nothing but these are a numerical series that gives that we gives to a user stories to define the complexity of a user story. Okay, so higher the number, higher that user story is complex to fulfill. Okay, now so you might be understanding, like you might be getting confused, like how we know certain user stories are important and who will be providing that insights. So our product owner will be contacting with stakeholders and discussing for first sprint, for first 2 weeks, what kind of futures they want to be looking at first. Okay, so that stakeholders will give some suggestion. Okay, we want to see login future and the product catalog in the first sprint. Okay, so that details will be carried by the product owner and provided to the Scrum Master and business analyst. Based on that, they will reprioritize the user stories in this manner. Okay, so now as product owner said, we will be doing Scrum. We will be only doing login and product catalog for the first sprint. So let's say we only need 3 user stories. Okay. This will be login, and this will be again a login. This will be product catalog, and this will be our product catalog. Okay. Let me full right. So now let's say out of 7 user stories, only 4 user stories are having login and product catalog requirements, okay, or futures. So now as the input given by the product owner for the first sprint, we need to only show login and product catalog. So what in sprint planning meeting, what will happen means dev team will pull those user stories to the sprint backlog. Okay. So user story number 4, number 3, number 2, number 1 will be pulled from product backlog to sprint backlog. Okay. So here let me provide it a different color so that we can say it is moved from product backlog to the sprint backlog. Okay. So now these user stories are moved from product backlog to the sprint backlog. So the Scrum team will start working towards these futures to provide an output by the end of the 2 weeks. Okay. So before this happens, there is a thing called, let me draw another thing, a small thing called DOR and an arrow pointing sprint planning. Okay. So this DOR, we already know what is DOR. DOR is nothing but, let me highlight it, definition of ready. Okay. Definition of ready. So what is this DOR means? Before you can move, okay, before you can move a user story to from product backlog to the sprint backlog, you need to make sure are they ready to actually work on it. Okay. So that readiness can be checked using a checklist called DOR. Okay. So I will write it here. Okay. DOR. Okay. It is a checklist that used to verify whether a user story is ready or not to move from product backlog to sprint backlog. Okay. So now you understand what is DOR and what is that function, right? So here, if you observe carefully, I have drawn an arrow pointing towards sprint backlog. So here we are having a sprint planning now. So the sprint planning is nothing but in the sprint planning meeting. So these are the ceremonies. So let me write it down. Scrum ceremonies or meetings. We have sprint planning, Scrum meeting, sprint review, sprint retrospective, and product grooming or backlog refinement. Okay. So when someone asks you what are the types of meetings or ceremonies we are having in a Scrum, these are the types of ceremonies we are having in the Scrum. So we have sprint planning, Scrum meeting, and another name for Scrum meeting is nothing but daily stand-up meeting. Okay, so daily stand-up meeting. So in sprint planning, what will happen means Scrum team will come together and pick the user stories from product backlog to sprint backlog. Okay, in sprint planning meeting, there won't be wastage of time. Okay, already user stories are ready to pick. In the product backlog, in the product grooming itself, we already groomed the user stories. So now all we need to do is just pull the user stories from product backlog to sprint backlog. Okay, and then we have Scrum meeting. So Scrum meeting again is nothing but a 15 minutes of meeting that everyone states their progress. Okay, so think of it as a kind of audit. So for every day, you will be having a 15 minutes call. In this call, every developers will come and say what they did yesterday, what they are doing today, or they are facing any issues. Okay, so these questions will be answered and the Scrum Master will be taking note of it. Okay, and then we have sprint review. So let's say 2 weeks are completed. Okay, we completed all the 4 user stories and we completed a feature called login and product catalog. So now after we completed the feature, we need to show it to respective stakeholders, right? So that feedback session is nothing but sprint review. Okay, so here the uh, what we called the validation of um, sprint what we say validation of sprint output. Okay, it will be on working software. Okay, will be happen with stakeholders. Okay, so in sprint review, stakeholders will come and check whether the future they build in that sprint is aligning with business value or not. Okay, after that, after sprint review is completed, you will be having your sprint retrospective meeting. Here we will look into our own our internal issues. Internal issues is in the sense, uh, are we facing any issues in the past sprint? Okay, so Scrum Master will take the notes of these issues and try to rectify him so that in the next sprint team won't face it. So maybe examples like, let's say in the last sprint, few developer faced an issue with API understanding. Okay, so in the next in the sprint retrospective meeting, people will talk about this API thing, and the Scrum Master will be ready with that knowledge, or he will um, ask for another associate who already have that idea to help them out. So in the next sprint, this won't be cause an issue without delaying the sprint. Okay, so here we will look into our internal issues and make sure they won't repeat again. Okay, so product grooming or backlog refinement is nothing but reprioritizing of user stories. Okay, so in this way, your user stories are uh, prioritized up to the date, and they will be moved to the sprint backlog based on the requirement for that sprint. and the product will be delivered to the user or the stakeholder at the sprint, at the end of the sprint called sprint review meeting, and any changes happen, he will be mentioned that, and then you will be having retrospective. Again, you will be reprioritizing them. Okay. So we missed one more checklist called, okay, we missed one more checklist called DOD. Okay. Definition of done. Definition of done. So definition of ready is like before you move user stories from product backlog to, okay, before you move user stories from product backlog to sprint backlog, you will check whether they are ready to move or not, right? In the same manner, before you move these completed user stories to the production. So user stories in the sense the code, no, they will code some features. So before they move that code to production, they will have one final checklist called definition of done. Okay. So this checklist will contain all the conditions they need to meet before considering that user story is completely done, so that they can move to the production without an issue. Okay, so that is called DOD. And here, if you observe carefully, we write something called MVP, Moscow, low PP, high BB, right? So let me color it differently. Okay, so these are all the types of prioritization techniques. So we will give a brief about it. Okay, so let's say we have total how many? 7 user stories, right? So let me write it here. It will be clear. Moscow, right? Moscow means you will have something called must, should, could, and would. Okay, and you have MVP, right? Minimal viable product. And low CP and high PV. Okay, so these are the different types of prioritization techniques that are available to prioritize your requirements. Okay, so let's say Moscow. So Moscow is the quite common technique most of the people use. It is very simple to prioritize your requirements. So you will divide all your user stories among these categories. Okay, so first one must. So must are nothing but whatever user stories you think that are uh, definitely without these user stories the product is not ready to deliver, those user stories will consider as must. Okay, you will move all the user stories that are uh, definitely need to be on the product or on the uh, project. You will move those kind of user stories into the must. Okay, should are nothing but these user stories needs to be there in the product, but not right now itself. Okay, you can take some time to uh, develop these features. Okay, so those kind of user stories will move to should. And could is nothing but uh, these are nice to have features. Okay, but without them also the product can be survived. Okay, and would, so these features are kind of extra. Even though you won't provide it, it can be handled, and you can use these extra features in the next release. Okay, so the based on these conditions you will split your user stories. And another technique we have MVP, minimum viable product. So this MVP is nothing but it is way of creating a core functionality of product. So MVP means you won't build an entire product in a single go. You will try to build a product with core functionalities, and you will start keep on adding extra functionalities to it. Okay. So for example, let's say, I hope everyone know about Zepto, right? So what is the Zepto main core functionality? So when a user logged in, it should show all the products they are having, and it should provide uh, billing amount or payment checkout, and it should deduct some money from our bank. Okay, and this is the core functionality of Zepto. So when you are moving with MVP kind of prioritizing, you will pick all the user stories that have that fulfill the core functionalities of product on top and remaining things on the bottom. Okay, so after completing our main functionalities of Zepto, now we will keep on adding things like add to favorites, things like tracking systems, things like coupons, things like messages. So these are extra features nice to have, but they are not the core functionalities. Okay, so that is called MVP. And low CP and high BV, it is simple. Whatever user stories having high business value will be most of the times uh, important. And if that is important and having low complexity, then people try to complete it first so that they will get more benefit out of it. Okay, so that is low CP and high BV. So now uh, you might have a doubt, like in sprint review meeting, let's say everything goes right. Okay, all the stakeholders are saying, okay, that is fine, let's move to the sprint 2. Low CP means low complexity points. Okay, MVP is nothing but minimum viable product. So where you will build the just the core functionalities, and later on you will add all the replacements or enhancements. Okay, right. And then so there is a doubt or kind of thing here. So let's say in sprint review meeting, all the user stories are okay with your product, with your working software at the end of the sprint, and they can say, okay, we can move to the next sprint. Okay, but sometimes the stakeholders might not be happy with the at the result, and they might need few changes or kind of bugs happened in the sprint review meeting. Okay, at the time, how or where we will move those bugs or changes. Okay, so if a sprint review meeting is completed and you have a couple of bugs or couple of requests, you don't move them directly to the next sprint. Okay, you will capture them and prepare a bug or user story for it clearly, and then assign BV, CP, and acceptance criteria again for them, and then you will push to the product backlog. Okay, now based on its importance, those will automatically comes to top and will be taken to this next sprint immediately. So in this way, even though you got some issues at the end of the sprint, those issues will be resolved based on priority in the next sprint or upcoming sprints. Okay, you got it right. So now I hope everyone understand in Scrum how the first interaction will happen between clients and the organization, and how they provide requirements, how this organization will transform those requirements into user stories, and how those user stories are prioritized with the techniques, and where they will captured, and which kind of checklist they will use before they planned some sprint meetings, and where they will move product backlog items to uh, another backlog, which is called sprint backlog, and what after completion of sprint backlog, what will happen, and in sprint review, what will do, sprint retrospective, what will happen, and then you will have again a sprint. Okay, so till now, anyone has any doubts, team? Please type your doubts in the text box. Till now, everything is clear, or do you have any other doubts? Please type. Yeah, I will share this document, no problem. Okay, we have a Fibonacci series. Okay, what else? Come on, team. Any other doubts? Okay, right. So our first question is Fibonacci series. Okay, so let me take you to the user story to here. Okay, right. So if you observe here, okay, okay, see, there is an user story, right? And we need to have some measures how difficult this user story to perform, right? And who can say how difficult that user story, right? People who are building that. So automatically developers, the persons who are building that user story, when I say building, they mean developing or coding. Okay. So these developers will give you, provide some numbers on the user story, and that numbers are nothing but story points or complexity points. Okay. So we can't give random numbers here. Okay. So that there needs to be some structured numbers, and one of it called Fibonacci series. So Fibonacci series are a kind of series where you will get your next number by adding previous two numbers. Okay. We will use these numbers to provide how complex or how much efforts required to that user story to complete in a sprint. Okay. So, and one more thing, don't forget that Fibonacci series is only talking about efforts. Okay. It's not only talking about efforts, it's also talking about uncertainty. So whenever developer themselves don't know what kind of dependencies that user story might have, then also the story point might be increased. Okay. So Fibonacci series will always talk about efforts required and uncertainty in that user story, right? And yeah, there might be few doubts people where why can't we use normal numbers like 1 2 3 4 5 6 7? Why need to go a special series called Fibonacci series? Okay. So the reason behind is that if you look at the normal numbers like 1 2 3 4 5, the gap between two numbers is only 1. Okay. So even if you want to give a user story number 3, okay, if you want to give a story point of 3, and a next story is somewhat higher than somewhat complex than the last one, still you are giving 4 to that, there is no major difference to identify the efforts, right? The only difference is 1, and you can't just like you can't what we say exactly say how difficult it is from 3 to 4. Okay. And one more thing, if you want to give a higher number, you need to skip all the numbers in between. Let's say uh, for you, for user story I have given 3, and the next user story it seems very hard, so I gave it 10. Okay. So we are skipping all these numbers between, where not an good way to provide user story. Okay. Not a good way to provide the story points. So with this Fibonacci series, even the with the short numbers, you are having higher values. So if you observe carefully, by the 1 2 3 4 5 6 7th place itself, you got value number that value of 13. Okay. So in the two cases, in terms of uh, difference between efforts, in terms of difference between lengths and values, Fibonacci series is good to have. That's the reason we will use Fibonacci series for the user stories. And you might be listening in YouTube videos something where called t-shirt size. Okay. So t-shirt size is also another method way to provide story points. So in this way, in this place, people just assign t-shirt sizes. So you will be having XS, S, L, M, XL, double XL, triple XL. Okay. So these are story another way to provide story points to user story. Okay. And then who can be a Scrum Master? Yeah, Scrum Master in the sense like a person who can able to manage team and who can make sure that team following all the agile principles can become a Scrum Master. Okay, you will have those 12 principles and 4 main values. No, uh, uh, the one who makes other follow them can become a Scrum Master, and you need to do some certification and all. Okay, and yeah, after product vision only, you will have your product grooming. Product grooming is nothing but prioritizing your requirements. No, until you get a user story, you can't prioritize them. So first thing first, product vision, and then user story workshop, and then user stories, and then you move them to product backlog. There you will start grooming. Low CP, high BV is nothing but it is a kind of prioritization technique where you will use user stories with high business value and low complexity values on top, and and remaining on the bottom. So if you complete high business value, you will get a high benefit with low efforts. So that's the reason this is a kind of prioritization technique. Okay, right. Mm, right. Any more? Mm, Definition of done. Okay. So definition of done is nothing but, see, uh, both DOR and DOD are the checklists. Okay. So DOR is used before a user story moved from product backlog to sprint backlog. You will make sure they are ready to move or not. Okay. And then DOD is nothing but definition of done. It is also a checklist before you move these completed user stories from its uh, place to the what we say production. Then you will check DOD once again whether they are truly done, so that it won't cause an errors in the production. Okay, so that is what DOD. Yes, for every sprint you will be checking DOR, DOD, and you will have all these meetings. Yeah, you'll be having all these ceremonies, and you will always prioritizing your product backlog. Okay. Yeah, it will take years based on the complexity of user product. Okay. Right. Any more doubts, team? Shall we move to JIRA, or do you need any clarification on the theory part? Yeah, low CP and high BV is a prioritization technique. Use it to prioritize your requirement user stories in the product backlog. Okay. So again, requirements and user stories are not different. In waterfall, you will place requirements in the document. In Agile, you will make requirements as a user story. Okay. Got it, Divyak? Right. And yeah, can we move to Jira now? Okay. Right. Thank you. Okay. So in the meantime, I will place 2 questions here. Try to answer these questions without internet uh, help and all. So let's say as per our discussion, we find out that product owner is the one who will be interacting with stakeholders, right? And Scrum Master is the one who will oversees the dev, not the Scrum team. Okay, oversee the Scrum team. Coming to business analyst, so PO is getting requirements from the stakeholders. Scrum Master is managing the team. Then what role exactly BA is placing or playing in Agile? Okay. And another question. What is the difference between SDLC and STLC? Okay. So try to come up with these answers. In the meantime, open your browsers. We will have JIRA uh, within 2 minutes. Okay. Okay, team. So it seems we got a lot of answers. Good. Thank you so much for participating. Okay. Right. Yeah. Almost everyone provided the right answers. Okay. Got it. Right. Yeah. Everyone provided the right answer. So let me give a small brief about it and we will move to the tool. Okay. Yeah. Product owner is the one who will be interacting with the stakeholders by gathering requirements, the two and high level requirements. And Scrum Master is the one who will be overseeing the Scrum team, whether they're following Scrum principles or not. Okay. But between these two members, you need one more member called business analyst who will be taking these high level requirements and converting them into detailed, refined user stories where developers can get understanding about what to build. Okay, so that is the first point. And second point, product owner will not be around in the sprint time or around by the developers to check whether whatever product these developers are building by the sprint are does it aligning with business goal or not, will check by business analyst. Okay, so yeah, product owner will come by and check whether the progress is going and whether we are on the exact timeline or not. But as a BA, you need to check the developers who are developing certain products, are these products are matching with business requirements. Okay, and Scrum Master will only be there to manage the team and to make sure they are effectively working towards the project. Okay, so managing team will not done by others. Okay, so each one of these people have their own rules and their own responsibilities, so no one will be interchanging those responsibilities. And one more thing, in some organization there might be short of a product owner. At that time, business analyst himself will become a pseudo product owner. Okay, so depending on the size, you will have that product owner and business analyst mixed. Scrum size and hierarchy. Uh, so Scrum size is nothing but uh, your team member size. Okay, sprint size is different, Scrum size is different, and Scrum day is different. Remember, Scrum day is nothing but a single working day inside sprint. Scrum size, your Scrum team, it might be uh, 10 to 12 members. Okay, team, just give me 1 minute. Okay, and coming to the hierarchy. So yeah, it's not uh, by definition and a hierarchy, but we can say product owner will be on top. Okay, and then business analyst, and then scrum master. Okay, so it's not as an authority phase, but a simple structure we can follow. Yeah, BA connects with client and stakeholders also, but mostly PO will be dealing with these stakeholders in Agile, where he will be gathering high level requirements. Okay. And not only requirements thing, PO is the one who will make sure that product vision comes true. And we are going to deliver the project within the timeline and within the budget. So that all the high level things will be managed by product owner. Okay, right. Right. I think that's all. We will move with Jira tool. Yeah, prioritization of will be done by in the presence of product owner, business analyst, and stakeholders. Okay, don't worry about it. Yeah, based on the companies and based on the organization, numbers might be vary. Sometimes you will have two teams where that cross functionality exists. Okay, so it depends upon the organization. So it's not a fixed number, right? If that's the case, let me save this file. Um, okay, by the end of the session, I will share this document with you. In the chat itself, I will be sharing this document. Okay, just download this document. So now, people who are already having system, please open your tab. Okay, let me open a new tab. Let me close this. So search for Jira. Okay, enter. You will be seeing Jira issue and project tracking software. Okay, so this Jira is nothing but it is a project management tool. Remember team, Jira is for project management tool. So basically Jira is used to track issues. Okay, that's why it's called issue tracking also. Okay, issues are nothing but bugs, user stories, everything will consider as an issue in the Jira. We are using Jira for our project tracking thing, but mostly in the past days, Jira is used to track the issues. That's why every thing or every user story, every epic consider as an issue there. So click on Jira issue and project tracking software. Okay. So team, do it right now. Once I am into the interface, I will start creating user stories. So don't make late. Okay. So just click on Google. Use your Google to log in. It will be very easy. Click on continue. continue. Your site, click on continue. Okay, it will take some time. So now, what kind of work do you do? So everyone select project management. Okay. So after you select project management, you will get Kanban, Scrum, select Scrum, click on continue. Leave everything as it is. Okay, we don't need to change anything right now. Click on get started. So you have things called future task, select story, bug, and then click on next. Remove idea, click on next. Click on do this later. Okay. So now I am inside the JIRA. Okay. Once you reach this interface, please let me know. After Scrum, go to click on continue. You will see project name already given. Click on continue. And then you will see I can't go back. Okay. Once the page is done, there is no going back. No worries, no worries. Okay. After click on Scrum. After you select project manager, click on Scrum. Click on continue. Project name will be already given. Click on continue. And you will see things called types of work. What type of work do you do? Click on project management. Vinod, what page you are seeing? Same page? Then fine. No worries. Options might change. Okay. Basic options will be backlog and this create option. Those two things is enough for now. Okay. Right. What about others? Have you reached to this interface? Priyanka, select project management. What type of work you do? Select project management. And then select Scrum. Benjamin, are you seeing summary? After that summary, what you are having? Active backlog. Got it. Okay. So who is this? Maithili, click on plus icon beside spaces. After for you have a spaces now. There click on plus icon and type your project name and click on enter. There you will create a new space and you will be seeing this page. Okay, team whoever is seeing same page as Maithili, click on plus icon beside space to create new space, and then you can see this all these details. Okay, right. Select Scrum. We are talking about Scrum, right? Select Scrum and then click on next. After you select Scrum, don't you have any button down? Don't select the product management, select project management. Then you can see Scrum. Okay, so let me check. People who are seeing this interface, please raise your hand. Let me see the majority and then we can start. Who are seeing this or not? You don't have to be exact my project management team. You just need to have this summary and the backlog and create options. Whoever having these details, please raise or give a thumb. Only 6 people out of 48 members. Okay, fine. After this session is completed, this video is available now. Within 1 or 2 days, you can do this. Okay. Right. Or else close your tab totally and start again one more time so that you can reach. So yeah, who is this? Kirti. Yeah. Yeah, Kirti, this is the page we are talking about. Okay. Yeah, Divyang, go to backlog. Okay. Right now you are in the timeline, go to backlog. Okay. Let us start. So people who are having trouble, please leave it that and please look into the screen. After this session is available in the YouTube, you can practice it. Okay. So click on backlog. Okay, let me check whether I can change the settings theme. Okay. So this will be the backlog. Okay. So here we already having sprint 0. Let me delete this sprint. Delete this sprint 2, sprint 1 also. We will start fresh. Okay. So now would like to delete this one also. So I'm just deleting all the irrelevant data. We don't need this. Okay. So now when you click on backlog, you are seeing this backlog, right? So this is our product backlog. Okay. So we need to create some user stories in this product backlog. And now let's create some user stories. So you can click on this create option. Okay, you will get this pop-up, expand it. Here you can see work type. Change this futures to story. Okay, so now you are creating a story. You need to fill all these details. So before we move to story, if you observe carefully, you have an epic, right? So listen very carefully, team. There is an epic and story. These two are different. Epic is nothing but it is also a requirement that is huge, where you cannot complete that requirement within a single sprint. Okay, epic is nothing but it is a requirement or a kind of need that cannot be completed in a single sprint. You will split down these epics into smaller parts, which are called user stories. Okay, epics are cut down to make it simple and easy to work in single sprint, and those cut downs are nothing but user stories. Okay, so before we create epics, sorry, before we create user stories, we will create an epic. Okay, let me select epic as a future, sorry, epic as a work type, and then let me write my summary here. Okay, so our summary might be like, let's say, whatever some things you write under this summary, the text will be visible on the outside of that work type. Okay, so let me type here, let's say customer onboarding. So this is an epic. So how I am saying this is an epic, because customer onboarding is not a small thing to have, small thing to develop. So when you are saying customer onboarding, you might have login features. You need to think about invalid credentials. You need to think about forgot password flow. You need to think about different types of customers. There might be vendors, there might be users to a platform. So all those people's onboarding will comes under this single uh, requirement. Okay, where it cannot be done in a single sprint. No, so customer onboarding is a epic. So here you can write a description if you needed, or here itself you can write an acceptance criteria. Okay, so let's say I will write a small description saying customer onboarding deals with the vendor user logins and registrations. Okay, and here assigning. So you will have your team members where you want to assign these epic. Right now I am the one who created this account, right? So it's showing me as a member to assign. Okay, so if you have a team to have there, you will get all those team details where you can directly assign this specific work type to him or her directly while you are creating this part. Okay, so you here you have a parent, right? So parent will not be uh, helpful in epic. Okay, parent is given to a user story so that you can link a user story to it epic. Okay, so epic itself is a parent, no? So that's the reason you can't have a parent for it. So forget about this due, start and everything. Here you will have story point estimate. So for epic also you will have story points. Okay, don't forget about it. So let's say this is a 13 story points. So due to an epic, right? So 13. So here you can have a issue color. So let's say I'm making blue. Click on create. So now I have created an epic, but you can see that epic is created, but I am unable to see where it is. So to see epic in your keyboard, press character E. Okay. When you press character E, you will get a small section called epic. Okay, so here you can see customer onboarding. I can create new epic from here or here. Let me create one more epic, and this time we will talk maybe admin, what? Admin dashboard. Okay, and descriptions like dashboard should have all the details about platform users. Okay, and story points might be uh, again a 13 here and dark yellow maybe. Okay, click on create. So now two epics are created, and if you expand them, you can see there are no other details. Okay, if you click on view details, there is no child work items, there is no assignee, uh, nothing else. Okay, because we didn't create any user stories under epic. So now let's create few user stories for this epics. Okay, let me close this, click on create, select work type as an story. Now you will write your story format here. Okay, so let me write it down. As a user, I want to log in so that I can view my profile. So your acceptance criteria will be here. Okay, like email and password login. Okay, and then you will have things called maybe invalid credentials should allow a pop-up. Okay, some things like you will have acceptance criteria like that. Okay, and then parent. So now you have parent. If you select that, you will get your epics. So this user story is about login, right? So that login means you are talking about onboarding thing. So select customer onboarding. So that means this user story will be a child to this parent. Okay, and then story points. So let's say this is an mid-level. So I'm just giving 3. And if you want to provide wireframes and prototypes, you can click on browse and attach that files here also. Okay, and then if you want to create multiple user stories without going back and forth, select this create another. Okay, select this create another, click on create. Okay, one work item has been created. So now let's create one more. So this time instead of user, I will just mention vendor. Okay, and here you can see priority as highest, high, low, lowest. I will just mention is high. Okay, parent is already selected based on previous selection. This time 3. I will click on create one more time. Okay, second work type is completed. And let me create one more. Okay, so example purpose, I'm just taking the same thing so we don't waste our time. I will, so this time such I can. Okay, okay, no, it won't happen here. Okay, customer onboarding will not come here. So let's say as a admin. Okay, so we are talking about admin, but login. So you'll be having customer onboarding again. Okay, this time 3. Click on create. Yes, parent is nothing but an epic. Okay, and then let me write one more user story as a admin. I want to see the list of active users in my dashboard so that I can get insights about my platform. Okay, so for this user story, admin dashboard is the parent. Okay, if you scroll down, you will see story point estimation. Okay, so maybe this time we will give 5. Click on create, and let me create one more the user no as a admin. I want to see total vendor versus total user statistics so that I can know about my users. Okay, statistics. So this will again move to dashboard, and let's say this is an 8. Okay, so this time I'm unchecking this create another, click on create. Okay, so now we have created few things. Okay, and let me check the backlog. Click on refresh to get already created things. Okay, so now if you observe carefully, you are seeing all the user stories that I have created. Okay, so now if you observe carefully, I already provided each user story to its epic, and each user story to its priority and its story points. Okay, if you press E, you can see epics, and if you select it, you can see the details. Okay, now this backlog is nothing but product backlog because all the user stories are here itself. So how the prioritization will happen means you will just read if it is a Moscow means you will just read it and take the inputs from the stakeholder, and let's say admin future is very important, then you will just select it and move on top. Okay, so in this way you will move the user stories top and back and forth based on the priority. Okay, now I have completed my product backlog. I want to start a sprint. For that, you have an option called create sprint. Click on create sprint. Sprint 1 is created. Okay, so for a sprint 1, I want to move all the user stories. Okay, I'm gonna select all things and dragging them to the sprint 1. Okay, so I have dragged all the user stories to the sprint 1 to complete. Now I want to start my sprint. Click on start. Okay, so you can say duration is automatically calculated as a 2 weeks, but reduce this duration to custom and try to have as low as possible. Okay, so now it is 12:49 now. Let me make it as, if it's possible, let's see. Okay, so the reason why we are making it less duration. With the less duration only, you can actually see some changes in the sprint burn down or burn up charts. Okay. Yeah, you can have more than 4 weeks also. That's why you have custom. Okay. Based on the project size and everything, you can have duration. So let's say our sprint goal is about customer onboarding and admin dashboard. Okay, so this is our sprint goal. Click on start to start your sprint. Okay, so now sprint is started, right? Okay, now let me move to my project. Click on board to access this page. In backlog, you will have an option called create. No, here. Okay, here you will have option called create sprint, and here you will option called start sprint. I already started, so that's why it's giving complete complete sprint. Okay. So once that is done, go to backlog. So go to board, and here you can see to do in progress, in review, done. So this will be done by the either Scrum Master or the dev team themselves based on their input, based on their progress. Okay. So let's say for me, Surendra Bhima, I have 5 things to do. Okay. So let's say I'm working on this future. So I will move them to in progress. Okay. So now let me click on plus, click on reports, and click on add to navigation. Okay. And here click on burn down chart, sprint burn up, burn down chart. So burn down chart will show you total work versus remaining work. Okay. Select it. Okay. So now if you see this is the ideal line that sprint needs to complete. Okay. This is the ideal line that sprint needs to complete. And here a small red dot is there, no? So this red dot is at story points 22 and work items 5. That means we are having total 22 story points worth of user stories. And after we complete a user story, this red line will fall down until it reaches 0. Okay. This red line will keep on reducing based on the story points you completed, and until after you complete all the story points for that sprint, then this red bar will closely move to 0 line. Okay. So let me go back to our project and let me push this in progress to review. So this time a review is happening. Okay. So I will pull few things to the progress. Okay. And let's say I have completed this user story into done. Okay. So now I moved a user stories to done. That means I have completed a user story worth of 3 story points. So let's check how the red line has been decreased. Okay. Let me refresh. Okay. So now if you observe carefully, we started as 22. Okay. Now -3 is happened because we moved a user story worth of 3 story points to done stage. No, that's why graph is reduced to -3. Okay. And the reason it is only in this straight line because today itself we make it done. So that's the reason it is falling straight. If you take some time, then the graph might move like this. Okay. So let me go back and complete all the user stories to done. Okay. Let me move to the done. So we are doing everything within a matter of minutes, right? So the report might not look idle. Okay. So if you see now, see, everything is completed within uh, in a single day. That took today itself. So that's why every user story is moved, showing completed within single day and reached 0. Okay. So this is how a sprint burndown chart will be read. Okay. So I'm going to show you a typical sprint burndown chart, how it will be look like. Let me annotate. Okay. Let me select red line. See, in real time, what will happen means your red line will start here and the people will take time to complete the user stories, right? So let's say they are taken 1 day. Okay. Today is what, 22, right? Okay. Let's say they have taken 3 days. That means 25. And then completed a story point worth of 3. Then it will move to here. Okay. It will move here. After that, they have taken 1 day, which means 26. And then they have completed one user story worth of 2. Okay. After that, in the same day, they have completed one more user story worth of maybe 3. Then it will move to down in the same day here. Okay. After that, let's say after 26, they haven't completed anything until March 1st or March. Okay. Just a minute. Until March 3, they haven't completed anything. Okay. In March 3, they have completed one user story worth of maybe 5. So they reached here. And last, maybe in March 7th, let me, they completed remaining one and that falls here. Okay. So now the sprint is completed. So yeah, worth is nothing but CP or SP story points. Okay. So if you observe carefully, let me take another line, like this one. Yeah. So this is an ideal line. The graph or JIRA tool, it will give you this line, which is ideal. Okay, ideal. This is an ideal line. Okay. So what happens is that Scrum Master will see this graph, or business analyst, product owner, everyone will see. Based on this graph, we can say how is our development team is doing. Okay. So let's say we will measure our development team working based on the gap between original line and the ideal line. Okay. See, if our line is always, let's say, let me take this one. Let's say from starting day to ending day, our line is always above the ideal line. And at the end, we have completed the story points, all the story points. Okay. That means our developers have underestimated the complexity of user stories and they never managed to completed the user story in the ideal form. Okay. So when the uh, real time or real line or this graph is above the ideal line, that means the entire development team underestimated the complexity of user story and gave less value, and they thought it is very simple. But when they start working on them, they haven't even reached the ideal line. There is always above that ideal line. That means they are working more because of they underestimated them. Okay. If the line is always below the ideal line, maybe something like here. Okay. So this means they have overestimated the user stories. They thought they are very difficult, but when they start working, it seems they are very easy. So they have completed a very simple, and they have lot of gap between the real to ideal. So this ideal is the margin where you can check whether we are correctly estimating user stories or not. Okay, right. So now as we completed everything in a single sitting, so that's why our line is in a straight line. If it is a real-time project, you will have like this. Okay. And one more thing, in real time, there are scenarios where you can see graph like maybe, let me take an eraser. Okay, let's say let me take red one. Yes. So in real time, what happens is that sometimes a urgency may come and some user story needs to uh, logged into the sprint backlog right away. So if you do that, the sprint graph will move upwards because you added a user story. Okay. Whenever you added a user story of a worth of some story points, that makes graph go upwards. Okay. If you reduce it, it will move downwards. I mean, if you make it done, it moves downwards. Okay. So yes, in sprint burndown chart also, you can expect chart going upwards because maybe in some cases there might add a few user stories in between into the story, into this sprint. That's why this graph is moved upwards. Okay. So that is possible in real time. Okay. So let me undo everything. Okay. So let me close this one, come back to project management, and then go to reports. So we have seen product burndown, no? Same thing, but complete opposite. We have sprint burnup. Burnup will show you completed work. Okay. So this is the completed work. Yes, the graph will move upwards if you add a user story. Okay. Into a ongoing user story, ongoing sprint. Okay. Now you are seeing sprint burn up. Okay. So this graph will show you the green line. If you make a user story completed, then it will move from 0 to the worth of user story. Okay. So let's say I have completed story user story with worth of 3 story points. No, that's why the graph is moved up until 3 points up. Okay. And then again 4 points, sorry, 8 points, and then until it reaches the target line, which is this red bar. So this red bar is nothing but our 22 story points. So this burn up chart will move from downwards to the top until it reaches the target line. Okay. So that is the burn up chart. And if you observe carefully, there is one more chart that is not available right now because velocity report will happen only after a sprint is completed. Okay. Let me complete this sprint. So click on, go to board, click on complete sprint. It is asking, do you want to complete? Yes, I want to complete. Okay, sprint is completed. Now let me go to reports. Now velocity report is available. Click on it. And you will see, expect all the committed and completed are same, which means we committed 22 story points for sprint 1 and we completed 22 story points in the sprint 1. So that's why the graph is same. But in real time, what happens is that sometimes team might overestimate themselves and they might be picked 22 story points or committed 22 story points, but due to overestimation, they have completed over 10. So in that case, you can see the difference here, committed versus completed. Okay, so based on velocity of chart, velocity report, you can say what is the efficiency of our team. Okay, so based on this velocity, you can understand how effective our team can work. Even based on that, you can manage to assign more user stories to them or not. Okay. And yeah, coming to my project team, go to backlog. You can start creating again new user stories and new epics for sprint 2. Okay, and your chart will be created in the background automatically. Okay, so this is JIRA tool team. Any doubts? So